After being kidnapped, I lost my memory. I mistakenly took the head kidnapper as my fiancé, kissing and touching him. Unfortunately, although the head kidnapper had a good-looking face, he was cold and abstinent, not allowing any contact. Until my real and heartless fiancé called, "Kathleen Birch, are you dead outside? If you're done fooling around, come back." The head kidnapper took my phone away and kissed me until I was breathless. He said coldly, "She's not dead. We're having a great and hot time." My fiancé panicked and kidnapped me to the wedding room in the middle of the night, wanting to have our wedding night in advance. That night, Osbert Coral, the young master of the Coral family, who dominated both the underworld and the high society in the capital, smashed into the wedding room. He draped his coat over me, looking terrifying. "Sweetheart, how dare he kidnap you? Shall I kill him?"
Chapter 1.
"Go ahead and kill her." I didn't expect Rudy Green to really not come to save me. His tone was indifferent, mixed with the deafening rock music of the bar. It stung my heart. "Rudy, who is it?" A soft voice came from the receiver. It was extremely clear. She was the new little star kept by Rudy. "No one." The phone was casually thrown on the table. I couldn't care about the pain, my voice tinged with sobs. "Rudy, I really got kidnapped, I'm not lying to you." The other side mocked lightly, "Kathleen, your little tricks are too low-level. I already agreed to marry you, don't be too greedy. You got my body, don't think you can get my heart." The kidnappers laughed. I looked down at the knife on my neck, my voice trembling. "Say something, he will definitely believe it." The kidnapper stopped laughing and informed the other side in a rough voice, 10 million, in the northern suburbs, cash for the person. Rudy laughed. "How much did Kathleen Birch give you to help her act?" "I'll pay double, you play with her as much as she likes, act however she wants, just don't bother me." "Rudy Green, are you really not going to save me?" I still held a glimmer of hope. A coquettish voice interrupted the conversation. "Rudy, you're not focused." The ambiguous sounds pierced my eardrums through the receiver. In between light pants, Rudy found a moment. "Come back when you're done, I'm busy." After the call was hung up, the empty warehouse was left with only the heartless echo. The two kidnappers discussed openly in front of me. "What should we do? Knock her out and send her to our boss's bed? She's got a slim waist and long legs, and she can talk a lot. The boss likes girls like this. Just drug her and carry her over." I didn't know who their boss was. What if he was a fat, cruel, bald old man? Am I really going to die here? "Bro, the girl ran away. Chase her." In the end, 2 legs couldn't outrun 4. The kidnapper knocked me out with a stick. When I woke up again, I was in bed. I couldn't remember anything. The blanket was wrapped around my head, and the room was dim. I didn't know how long had passed before I faintly heard a sound outside. The low, muffled voice was indistinct, but I could imagine a man with a good temperament. The bedroom door opened, and footsteps approached. I felt inexplicably nervous. The sound stopped by the bed, paused for a moment. The blanket over my head was lifted, and I found myself staring into the eyes of a man. I didn't recognize him. But God, he was so handsome. That was my first thought. Short, neat hair, bold eyebrows, a high nose, and enticingly red thin lips, with tan skin and a mole on his Adam's apple. He had a broad chest, 8-pack abs, and a noticeable bulge in his pants. But his eyes were cold. He gave off an abstinent yet capable vibe. The man was stunned for a moment, then covered me with the blanket again. He clicked his tongue, clearly displeased. A lighter clicked open, and the man lit a cigarette. Amidst the swirling smoke, he leaned against the headboard and made a phone call. I lay next to him. As soon as the call connected, the man's impatient questioning began. He was extremely annoyed. Where did the woman with the lecherous eyes in my bed come from? The reply was vague. I only caught bits about being kidnapped, not very obedient, fiancé, fell and hit her head. I did remember my father, the current head of the Birch family. Greedy and keen on arranged marriages. It seemed my father wanted me to marry the man in front of me, and when I refused, he had me kidnapped. Unfortunately, I fell and lost my memory. So, This man was my fiancé. But with such good looks, why would I refuse? Oh, I see. Great, you all sure know how to make decisions for me. The man's voice carried a smile, but with a hint of coldness. The person on the other end was too scared to speak. I struggled to crawl out from under the blanket. Noticing the movement, the man lifted a corner of the blanket while still on the phone. His slender fingers brushed my cheek, lightly scratching my chin. Like someone unconsciously petting a cat while focusing on something else. It tickled. I opened my mouth and bit his finger. Hiss. Boss, what's wrong? He regained his composure. Nothing, the little cat you brought over bit me. Did he really think I was a cat? I angrily bit him again. The man hung up the phone and silently stared at me. His dark eyes were calm and unruffled. We stared at each other for a while, and finally, I looked away with a red face. His smile was full of mockery. I thought you were braver. I bit my lower lip, so embarrassed I wanted to escape. I'll give you one chance to leave now. Get out. He probably knew I didn't want to marry him. But I was starting to change my mind. My voice was barely audible. It's not impossible between us. I'm quite adaptable. Even though you're so fierce, you're also so handsome. Honey, why don't we make do with each other? I awkwardly spoke, my face turning red with embarrassment. Fireworks exploded in my heart. What did you say? The man pulled my face out from under the blanket. He hooked my chin with his index finger, clearly interested. His sharp eyebrows raised slightly, and the corners of his lips lifted. His teasing gaze swept over my face. What did you just say? His low voice made my heart itch. I blushed and answered softly, honey. The man snorted lightly, my name is Osbert Coral. Oh, you're not afraid? Osbert seemed surprised. I'm already his fiancé, why would I be afraid? I shook my head, not afraid. Really not leaving? Not leaving. Osbert said disdainfully, you're too young. Then you can raise me first, I quickly said. His patience was running out. I don't raise idle people. I'm already your fiancé, and you still call me idle. Could it be? Osbert, can you untie me first? Being tied up was too uncomfortable. Osbert unwrapped me like a gift. His well-proportioned fingers flexed slightly, unhooking the ropes and lightly touching my skin. Finally free, I struggled to climb out. But who would have thought, the person who tied me up dressed me in such clothes. Black lace fabric that barely covered anything. Osbert turned his head away, threw the blanket at me, and headed out. Get yourself together and come out. Seriously, he wasn't even tempted. I bit my lip and grabbed Osbert's wrist, giving it a hard pull, causing him to fall on top of me. I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him. Osbert was clearly caught off guard, stunned for a few seconds before trying to push me away. But I was already clinging to him with both arms and legs. I had never learned how to kiss, so I could only kiss him clumsily. One of his arms circled my waist to keep me from falling. His tan skin against my pale waist was a strong contrast. But his other hand gripped the back of my neck, pulling me away. We stared at each other, my eyes darting away as I pretended to be shy. Osbert's eyes were clear, and he touched his lip where I had bumped it. If you can't kiss, don't force it. He put me down, and I grabbed his hand. Can you let me practice more? Kathleen Birch. What? Osbert leaned back on the sofa, his long legs crossed. He lifted his thin eyelids and looked at me. I was wearing a shirt he had found for me temporarily. The pants were dragging on the floor. Do you know how you got here? Yes, I was kidnapped. Osbert's expression didn't change much. I knew you must have hit your head and become stupid. Come here. Oh. I sat next to him, close to his arm. Not knowing his current attitude, I sneaked a glance at him. His profile was clear, his features rugged, and the warm light softened the stern look on his face. His expression was relaxed, giving no hint of his mood. Osbert pulled out a first aid kit from under the coffee table, rummaged through it with his large hands, and tossed a box onto my lap. Apply this to the bump on your head yourself. Such a tough guy with a tender side, so warm. Will this medicine leave a scar? Use it or don't use it, I don't care. His tone wasn't very good. I can't see the wound, can you help me? I blinked and held his hand. Osbert held back his annoyance, finally pulling out his hand and using a cotton swab to apply the medicine to the bump on my forehead. He was clumsy and quite casual. The application wasn't very even. I stared at him intently, and he got annoyed by my gaze. He threw away the cotton swab. That's enough. No, you didn't apply it evenly. I wanted to get closer to him. Osbert ignored my complaint. He stood up. The guest room on the second floor is yours to sleep in. Tomorrow, I'll get a doctor to check your head. I hugged his waist. Where are you going? He glanced back at me, his eyes looking as if he was staring at an idiot. Can I sleep with you? Late at night. Osbert saw the girl lying on his lap and dialed the string of numbers sent by his subordinate. Who is it? Can't a person rest at night? Osbert ignored the grumbling on the other end and got straight to the point. Your daughter is with me. Herman Birch was startled. Then he realized it was his unloved younger daughter who had been kidnapped. He snorted coldly, You want me to ransom her? Dream on. She ran off on her own, you can keep her. I don't need your ransom money, but I heard the Birch family just arranged a marriage with the Green family. If the bride goes missing, how will you explain that to the Greens? Osbert played with a lock of Kathleen's hair, twirling it around his finger. Herman finally recognized the familiar voice. He swallowed. What do you want me to do? At the upcoming bidding meeting, I hope you won't cause too much trouble, or else. Herman knew the consequences. The Quarrel family had influence both in legal and illegal circles, with foreign forces entrenched in various places. In recent years, they had shifted their business focus to the domestic market. Within less than 3 years, the new head of the Quarrel family, Osbert Quarrel, had established a firm foothold in the capital. Their methods were unimaginable. Herman hurriedly agreed, I understand. I will behave at the bidding meeting. Please take care of Kathleen. How is she now? Osbert glanced at the person on his lap and hung up the phone without hesitation. In her sleep, Kathleen was restless. She frowned slightly, her hands still holding Osbert's fingers. She squeezed them from time to time. Osbert pulled his hand away and noticed a few drops of saliva on his fingers. Disgusted, he wiped them with a tissue and moved Kathleen's head off his lap. At the corner of the stairs, Osbert looked back at the person sleeping on the sofa. He irritably scratched his head, then went back, picked up Kathleen. His face showed impatience, but his movements were gentle. The girl's small legs, clad in oversized pants, dangled in the crook of his arm. Osbert carefully avoided the door frame. He casually placed her on a bed in one of the guest rooms. I've been staying at Osbert's house for a few days, but I rarely see him. There's a large boxing ring in the basement, and Osbert often spars with his subordinates there. I sneak down to watch. Osbert has a great physique, and his subordinates are not bad either. Especially when he's dripping with sweat and throwing sharp punches, it's incredibly captivating. Today, Osbert's opponent looks different. He's fair-skinned, with some muscles, but nowhere near Osbert's level. Osbert is practically dominating in every aspect. His punches are fast, accurate, and ruthless, his gaze sharp and devoid of any emotion. His jawline is clear and distinct, and as he moves, his facial muscles twitch slightly. Sweat trickles from his forehead down his cheeks, winding down his neck. His muscles are well-defined without an ounce of excess fat, his back line smooth, and his back muscles stretch with his movements. His waistband sits on his hip bones, and sweat slides down along the muscle lines, flowing over his V-line and disappearing into more private areas. His tan skin looks even more attractive. Each punch lands solidly, and the handsome guy opposite him is getting beaten black and blue, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. He struggles to get up but is pinned down by Osbert and beaten further. So ruthless. Every move and technique is thrilling to watch. Suddenly, the fair-skinned guy tries to launch a sneak attack, and I know Osbert can dodge it. But I still couldn't help shouting out. The guy lying on the ground is extremely frustrated, damn. I could have hit him. Why did you shout, little beauty? Even though he's complaining, he called me a little beauty. Osbert throws a sharp gaze at him, and the guy quickly covers his mouth. Sorry. I shouldn't have flirted with your girlfriend. Bro, you've finally found a girlfriend? When did this happen? She's Kathleen Birch from the Birch family. Next time you see her, remember to call her by name. Got it, but bro, what kind of heavenly life are you living? With such a little beauty by your side, she didn't make a sound when you were beating me up, but the moment I tried to sneak attack you, she got all anxious and warned you. Osbert ignored him and walked straight to me. He's very tall, looking down at me, his gaze no longer as aggressive as before. A wave of spring air mixed with the scent of male hormones and sweat hits my nose. I clutch my dress, feeling a bit uncomfortable. My eyes, against my will, fixate on a certain red spot on the man in front of me. Who allowed you to come here? It wasn't a questioning tone, more like he simply didn't want me to see all this. I just wanted to have a look. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I try to make conversation. Are you okay? I'm fine. Oh my gosh, I'm being ignored. I've been beaten to a pulp, and no one cares about me. Osbert takes off his gloves and walks inside. You better not come here anymore. It's dirty and messy. I follow him step by step. How could it be? After all, the men here are handsome. Osbert stops at the bathroom door, turns back, his voice hoarse. I'm going to take a shower. Are you coming too? My face turns red. It's not like I can't. He responds by closing the door. The boxing ring is very hot, so I walk outside. The fair-skinned guy is still lying on the ground, grimacing in pain, unable to get up. But he's still curious. I'm Josh Coral, his young brother. Beauty, how did you meet my brother? I see his face all bruised and blood still seeping from his mouth. Should I call a doctor for you? You look like you're about to die. This is nothing. My brother's injuries were much worse when he was young. Back then, he and my dad were abroad, and my dad really beat him up badly. Otherwise, I wouldn't be suffering now. Calm down. Without your brother, it might be your dad beating you up. Tisk. Josh props his head up with his hands and looks at me. What's so special about you? With that sharp tongue, my brother still wants to keep you around? Actually, I'm the one clinging to your brother. Josh is shocked, he's so fierce. What do you see in him? I want to sleep with him. Josh's eyes almost pop out. What are you two talking about? I jump in fright. Nothing. I'm heading back now. I clutched my pounding heart and returned to the bedroom only to suddenly remember that my easel was still in the living room. Since Osbert wasn't home, the living room had better lighting, so I had moved my easel there. But the Osbert in the painting was completely naked. I hurriedly ran out, only to see Osbert already about to lift my sketchbook. I rushed over and quickly pressed down the sketchbook. I didn't draw well. Don't look. Osbert calmly said, I've finished looking, just closing it for you. A person can die, but they can't die of embarrassment. Especially not in front of the person involved. Osbert's lips curved up on one side. You drew pretty well, but there's still some discrepancy from reality. I wasn't willing to concede. Of course, since the real person wasn't in front of me. If you have the guts, stand in front of me naked and see if I can draw you accurately. Osbert's eyes flickered as he closed the sketchbook. Young girl, don't let your mind be filled with such impure thoughts. TCH, I think you're just scared. I'm only drawing you, not sleeping with you. What are you afraid of? Osbert paused, then turned around. He approached me while taking off his shirt with one hand, his body still fresh from a shower. What do you want? What pose do you need? I'll follow your instructions, Miss Birch. I stepped back, covering my face, then awkwardly put my hands down. Just sit on the sofa. Any pose is fine. If you don't mind, could you also take off your pants? I suggested quietly. All right. Osbert uttered one word, his fingers already on his belt, ready to pull it off. I nervously closed my eyes. After a few seconds, I peeked through a small gap. I saw Osbert's eyes smiling, very close to me. If I looked up, I could kiss him. I hastily averted my gaze. With such a small courage, who gave you the nerve to look at a man? Osbert, don't you know that teasing me so closely is against the rules? But he sat calmly on the sofa, covering his waist with a blanket, and started reading documents. Meanwhile, my hand holding the pen was trembling. I didn't expect that I would get used to Osbert's bed. For the past few days, I had been sleeping in his bed. Today, he came back, and I was driven to the guest room, recalling the handsome body I had seen today. As I stood barefoot by his bed, I thought I had gone mad. Osbert was sleeping soundly, and I quietly lifted his quilt and slowly lay down beside him. He didn't wake up. It started raining outside, with thunder rolling. Osbert frowned slightly, moved closer to me, and then held me. He wasn't wearing a shirt. The warmth and elasticity under my hand were surprising. Until then, I had always thought chest muscles were hard. I was too excited to sleep. Kathleen Birch, have you had enough touching? No. Osbert woke up. His face was dark with displeasure. Who let you in? His voice, just waking up, was a bit hoarse and clearly impatient. I nestled in his arms, peeking out from under the quilt. There's a thunderstorm. I pointed at the window. I thought you were afraid of thunder, so I came to keep you company. Osbert closed his eyes, enduring for a couple of seconds, his sleepy voice tinged with compromise. Sleep. I giggled and touched his abs a couple more times. I didn't sleep a wink all night, but by the next morning, I was the only one left in the bed. I thought our relationship had gotten a bit closer since we had such intimate contact. But Osbert clearly didn't like me. He wouldn't let me touch or hold him. Even when he took a bath, he wrapped the towel around himself 3 times. His gaze was so cold it could freeze someone. Following the principle of pursuing someone with persistence, I occasionally tried to please him. Until I blew up Osbert's kitchen, killed the flowers in his greenhouse, and broke his shower head. Osbert told me to give it a rest. Be good, play by yourself. He smiled and ruffled my hair, but I felt there was a hint of gritting his teeth. I lay on top of Osbert, wrapping my arms around his waist. Osbert pried my hands off him. What are you up to now? I'm not good at much, but I'm skilled at my job. Don't move, let me measure your 3 sizes. I'll design a set of clothes for you for free. A top domestic designer personally taking your measurements, you shouldn't be ungrateful. Osbert pried my hands off. Does your family measure sizes by touching? He saw through me. Yeah, we do it by touching. What, you want to beat me? Osbert finally looked away from his documents. If you move again, I'll break your hands. I have an appointment with the doctor tonight, and he can help reattach them for you. So ruthless. I grabbed Osbert's hand and placed it on my chest. You're so scary. Can you feel my heart racing? I didn't expect Osbert to actually find a doctor for me. Dr. Woodard teased me when he saw me. Oh, Osbert finally blossomed like a late bloomer. Such a rough guy, yet he raised such a delicate girl. I felt embarrassed by his words. Cut the crap, check what's wrong with her head. Osbert interrupted Dr. Woodard's teasing with a cold face. It's nothing serious. She suffered a head injury, which caused temporary amnesia. Let her be exposed to things from her past, she might recover. Try to keep her in a good mood during this period. Thank you. As Dr. Woodard was about to leave, Osbert suddenly remembered something and called him back. The bump on her head, prescribed some medicine that won't leave a scar. Dr. Woodard clicked his tongue in surprise as if he'd seen a ghost. I was even more stunned. Osbert actually remembered what I said. You should know, back in the Birch family, even if I bumped into something, fell, or broke a leg, no one would care about me. I looked at Osbert, who was leaning lazily against the door frame, watching Dr. Woodard examine my injury. Noticing my gaze, he averted his eyes, turned around, and left the bedroom. After seeing Dr. Woodard out, I thanked Osbert. He leaned on the sofa and beckoned me with his finger. I lowered my head slightly, and Osbert, as if inspecting homework, glanced at the medicine I applied. It's okay. This was my first time observing Osbert up close. His features were undoubtedly striking. When not smiling, he looked fierce. When annoyed, he seemed like he wanted to twist someone's head off. When compromising, he had a kind of smile that made you feel like he'd kill you behind your back. As for his smile, I had never seen it. What are you looking at? Osbert tilted his head, eyes slightly narrowed with a smile, patiently waiting for my next move. Osbert, just, thank you. I quickly kissed him on the lips and then ran upstairs. Osbert was stunned for a moment, then lowered his head, rubbed his nose with his index finger, and the corners of his lips curved into a smile. He smiled. It was so rare. But his smile seemed like my illusion. After this incident, he returned to his cold demeanor. He was impossible to flirt with. Not only that, but he also started staying out all night. Osbert used to come back every 2 or 3 days, but this time he hadn't come back for a week. I enjoyed the peace, not having to go to work, just receiving deliveries and ordering takeout in the villa. Watching dramas, playing games, it was simply paradise. My best friend sent me a message. Kathleen, why haven't I seen you lately? That deadbeat man has been at the bar every day. Who? Mia sent me a photo. In the chaotic and drunken bar, a man was holding a girl, drinking wine fed by her, the liquid wetting his collar. So debauched. Is he a nude gigolo at the bar? Mia sent a string of question marks. That's Rudy Green. You used to follow him around all the time. I used to have pretty bad taste in men. I sent her a photo of Osbert's back. I took this sneakily while he was undressing. Now, looking at it, I still felt thrilled. Under the dim light, his bronze skin, tight and strong back muscles, with water droplets rolling down, was incredibly enticing. Mia sent a shocked emoji. Who is this? My new fiancé. You're awesome. I was happily admiring the photos on my phone, reminiscing about Osbert's firm muscles, when he came back. He came back drunk. The man supporting him looked fierce. I found him somewhat familiar. As soon as he saw me, he stuttered, Miss Birch. The fierce guy was obviously startled. You know me? The boss mentioned you. I looked at the man leaning on me, slightly frowning, his hair a bit messy. He actually mentioned me. What happened? The boss had a social event today and drank a bit too much. Then you can go. I'll take care of him. What are you afraid of? I won't eat him. I threw Osbert onto the sofa. He leaned back, his neck and jaw forming a smooth line. The light from above highlighted his protruding Adam's apple, and the black mole on his neck moved up and down with his breathing. His suit was open, the top 3 buttons of his shirt undone, faintly revealing the contours of his chest muscles. The bottom of his shirt was pulled out, looking disheveled. His long legs, wrapped in tailored suit pants, were spread out casually, his shoe tips resting against the coffee table legs. Osbert rested for a while, then lifted his eyelids and saw me. In a hoarse voice, he said, Why are you still here? That remark was quite irritating. Osbert fumbled for a cigarette and bit it. Because he was drunk, he had trouble finding his lighter. I pressed his hand down. I'll find it for you. He stopped and stared at me intently. His gaze was sharp, wild, and slightly malicious. I steeled myself and straddled his waist. Soft, hot. I didn't say anything, feeling around his jacket pocket, then his pants pocket. I couldn't find the lighter. But his clothes got even more disheveled. I rarely saw him in a suit. At first glance, he looked quite decent. At second glance, he was unruly. The phrase "a beast in human clothing" was all that came to my mind. What are you doing? He smiled dangerously and attractively. My hand slid from his shoulder to his chest, his thin, tight muscles were sexy, my fingers hooked on his shirt buttons. Was the social event successful? Pretty good. Not knowing what to say, I silently unbuttoned Osbert's shirt. Strangely, he didn't stop me today. The outfit I promised to make for you is finished. Look, it's over there. On the living room coat rack hung a black long coat, with simple embroidery on the chest. It would look good on someone with broad shoulders. Looks good. I went to an auction the day before yesterday and got a little trinket. Osbert took out 2 pink diamond earrings from his jacket pocket. They were made by a world-renowned designer, all day, during a burst of inspiration while in love, and due to the emotional state and exquisite design at the time, they fetched a sky-high price. You call these little trinkets? Only you girls like these fanciful things. No one wants them at my place, so I brought them for you to play with. Why do I find that hard to believe? Because Osbert's villa is in the suburbs, with beautiful surroundings but far from the city center. Delivery is slow, and I complained about it once. Osbert found it annoying, so he picked a third-ranking bodyguard, specifically to fetch my deliveries. The tall, burly bodyguard always had a grim face, carrying a bunch of packages, even the latest hot items from physical stores. Osbert looked at the room full of strange things, helplessly letting me be. Weren't you looking for a lighter for me? Osbert glanced at his clothes, his eyes seeming to want to devour me. You've stripped me like this, what do you want to do? Drunk Osbert wasn't as fierce, his eyes had a layer of desire. I took the cigarette from his mouth. Smoking is not as fun as kissing. As I leaned in, Osbert pressed the back of my head. This was our first real kiss. Osbert's lips were dry but soft, his teeth lightly biting my lower lip. Open your mouth. When I couldn't breathe, I whimpered and pulled back. Catch your breath, good girl. In the brief pause for breath, Osbert grabbed the back of my head again. His palm cupped my head, his fingers threading through my soft hair, causing a strange tingling sensation. My hands unconsciously climbed up his shoulders, pulling his shirt even more open. Something quietly pressed against me from below. I silently reached out my sinful hands. Ding dong. An ill-timed message. The phone screen lit up at just the right moment. From Rudy Green, Kathleen, come to the first white bar now. Who is this person? Osbert's eyes were calm, he paused for a second or two, then let go of me. Because of the kiss, his voice was still a bit hoarse. I'm going to take a shower, you should rest early. I grabbed his hand but didn't know what to say. Osbert pulled his hand out, good night. Could it be that he was jealous? I glanced at the phone. Why did I still have such an annoying person's contact saved? I angrily deleted his message. Osbert casually threw his coat on the sofa and started unbuttoning his shirt as he walked. I followed him closely. Don't get me wrong, my best friend told me that he's just a gigolo. Is he yours? Of course not. When we reached the bathroom door, Osbert turned around. Got it, you can go out now. No, no. I clung to the door frame. Osbert looked at me, questioning with his eyes. What's up? I clutched the hem of my clothes. I can help you take a bath. Osbert's eyes darkened, and he closed the door more swiftly. No need. Taking advantage of my small frame, I squeezed in. A drunk person shouldn't bathe alone, it's dangerous. Really? Osbert asked with a hint of amused interest. Really, I'll cover my eyes, I promise I won't look. I was utterly sincere. What bad intentions could I possibly have? All right then. Osbert's lips curved slightly, and he pointed to the corner of the wall with his chin. Stand there, face the wall, and don't turn around. I had just stood still when I heard the rustling sound of clothes being removed behind me. Soon after, Osbert threw his shirt over my head. The scent of male hormones mixed with the smell of soap from the shirt overwhelmed me, and I clutched it nervously in my hands. The shower turned on, and water began to drip onto the floor. Realizing that Osbert had started to wash, I gripped the shirt in my hands even tighter. The steam from the bathroom made my face flush. Glancing inadvertently at the wall in front of me, I was stunned. My mind went blank. The wall was reflective. I could clearly see Osbert's inverted triangle figure, broad shoulders, narrow waist, with perfect proportions. I could even see Osbert's bathing movements. He lowered his head, running his hands through his hair, water splashing everywhere. As he moved, I could see the shape. I felt so embarrassed. Osbert chuckled lightly. I thought you could handle it, but you can't even take this. I retorted stubbornly, it's nothing, it's not like I haven't seen it before. My mind was wandering, and I didn't notice that the sound of water had stopped long ago. A damp hand grabbed my arm, and with a forceful pull, Osbert pressed me against the sink. His hand cushioned my waist to prevent me from getting hurt. Osbert had finished his shower, his hair was half dry and dripping with water, and he was only wrapped in a bath towel around his lower body. He propped his hands on either side of me, his body slightly leaning down. A few strands of hair fell over his forehead, and Osbert's gaze was intense. Kathleen. He bit my name, grinding his lips against mine. Tell me, whose body have you seen? How was I supposed to answer that? My face turned red with embarrassment. Osbert grabbed my delicate wrist and brought it under his bath towel. His alluring eyes gazed at me, openly teasing. Sensing my desire to escape, he hooked his lips and tightened his grip on my wrist. His seductive voice whispered in my ear, "Good girl, it's awake, touch it." The next day, I woke up in Osbert's bed. He had already left. Recalling last night, I blushed. Although we didn't go all the way, it was still exhausting. I rubbed my sore waist and got up, feeling a wet sensation below. I had a bad feeling. Lifting the blanket, sure enough, my period had come. And I had stained Osbert's sheets. I was thinking about what to do when there was a sudden knock on the door. Who is it? I opened the door, puzzled, only to see a beautiful woman I didn't recognize. She was dressed fashionably, with big wavy curls. As soon as she saw me, her voice turned sharp. Who are you? Why are you in Osbert's house? And dressed like that? My pajamas from last night were dirty, so I had to change into something less fitting. I pulled the neckline. Who are you? Coming to someone else's house and yelling, that's really rude. You. I'm Osbert Coral's fiancé. You're his fiancé? Then what am I? I used to live with Osbert for half a year. He even kept my things in the storage room on the second floor. I can't believe you, this woman, have taken over. She looked at me with extreme disdain. But I got excited. Mississippi. I grabbed the girl's retreating body. Didn't you live here? Do you know where your sanitary pads are stored? I pouted, my period is here, and I can't find any. There are none nearby either. Can you help me find some? Huh? The girl was a bit stunned. She impatiently shook off my hand. How would I know where they are? Besides, no girl has ever lived here, so why would he stock up on such things? Huh? No girl has ever lived here? Then were you just talking nonsense? You tricked me? I pouted, I didn't, I really need them urgently. The girl stared at me for a few seconds, then suddenly realized, I know who you are, you're Rudy Green's. Kathleen. Osbert was back. Osbert. The girl ran to Osbert in high heels and hugged his arm. Osbert calmly pulled away. Why are you here? I'm your fiancé, can't I come? I suddenly got nervous about what Osbert would say. He walked over to me and handed me a bag. I didn't know what brand you use, so I bought them all. Osbert ruffled my hair like he was comforting a child. Go change, put the dirty clothes there, and don't touch cold water. So he went to buy sanitary pads for me. Of course, I noticed the girl's jealous face. But Osbert didn't even look back, calmly stating, if I remember correctly, we should have broken off the engagement. Osbert. The girl's voice was tinged with tears. You don't want to marry me because of her? We broke off the engagement 3 months ago, before I even met Kathleen. But do you know who she is? I know. Osbert raised his voice, but it's none of your business. Osbert opened the door and made a gesture for her to leave. When I finished changing, the girl had already left angrily. Osbert, who's Rudy Green anyway? Why does everyone mention him? Hearing this, Osbert pinched my cheek. Why? Do you care about him? Of course not, I'm just curious. Osbert thought for a moment and then snorted coldly, just a male homewrecker. Huh? Don't mention him anymore. Osbert hugged me and put me on his lap, placing a hot water bottle on my stomach. Are you feeling very uncomfortable? No, it's just that I stained your bed. It's okay, I'll wash it. I could imagine him smoking a cigarette and scrubbing the sheets. I never expected that the cold person back then could be so gentle now. I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed his lips. Don't seduce me. Osbert's voice was a bit hoarse. So what? What could he do to me? Osbert held my waist, his hands sliding up my back. Then he kissed me deeply, making me feel weak all over. The phone rang at an inopportune moment. I freed a hand to answer it. Kathleen Birch, where the hell are you? You even dared to delete my contact. When you're done fooling around, come back. I immediately recognized that it was Rudy Green. The Rudy I had deleted from my memory. Kathleen, what are you doing? Is there a man beside you? Rudy was furious. Osbert kissed me harder, his voice cold as ice. She's not dead. We're having a great and hot time. Who are you? Do you know she is my? Osbert hung up the phone. Did you hear that? The one ruining our relationship is the male homewrecker. On the other end of the call, Rudy threw his phone, and everyone in the room fell silent. Furious, he drove to the Birch family residence. I didn't really believe what Osbert said. I still went to ask my best friend. Mia's reply was hesitant. Why bring him up? No, I forgot about him, literally. What? That's good. He was just a scumbag. He was your fiancé before, but he was awful. Not only did he skip your engagement party, but he also couldn't keep his hands off other women. You were like under a spell, completely infatuated with him. It's great that you've forgotten him now. I was shocked. He was my fiancé. Then who is Osbert Coral? A male mistress? A certain male mistress named Osbert Coral took care of me for a whole week. Kathleen. Yes? Osbert rubbed my head. I've been busy with work lately, but it's almost done. You should go out and get some exercise. I'll take you out this afternoon. Honestly, I hadn't had enough of lazing around. Are you saying I've gained weight? No. But he was clearly pinching the flesh on my belly. All right, wait for me a bit longer. I need to get ready. No problem. I'll wait as long as it takes. In the end, I wore a short skirt that didn't reach my knees, paired with simple leather shoes, and the pink diamond earrings Osbert had given me. Osbert wore a long coat. He had a unique charm, tall and upright, making the coat look very proper on him. Being a native of the capital, he's been to almost every fun place. Osbert didn't bother thinking much, simply taking me to the mall to shop. I already had many pieces of jewelry, but Osbert always said there were new designs. Before I knew it, I had my eyes on a few more. Just as I was holding a tie-up to Osbert to see how it looked on him, I saw the man who had disappeared from my memory but seemed to be everywhere. Rudy Green. Actually, Rudy had a hard time recognizing Kathleen. But over the past decade, she had always followed him, and her image was clearly etched in his mind. He couldn't recognize her because the girl who had always followed him was now well taken care of by the man beside her. Kathleen's skin was very fair, her figure excellent. She wore a delicate dress that outlined her superior curves. Around her neck was an expensive pearl necklace, and on her earlobes were masterpieces from her idolized designer. He had researched that piece, always thinking that as long as Kathleen continued to follow him, it didn't matter if he bought it early or late. It wouldn't hurt to give it to her on their wedding night. But now, she was glowing, smiling. Smiling at that man. She had never smiled at him like that. But why? She had always revolved around him, running to him without hesitation, stirring ripples in his heart. Yet, within a few days, she stopped coming to him. Within a few days, Kathleen had fallen into someone else's arms. When Rudy approached, I instinctively hid behind Osbert. Osbert held my hand, signaling me not to be afraid. Kathleen, where have you been these days? Don't you know we're engaged? I think we should get our wedding back on track, or I won't even know if you run off with some random guy. Osbert sneered. Wedding? Mr. Green, are you confused? From the moment you refused to save her, she ceased to be your fiancé. She is now my fiancé. Rudy took a step forward. Yours? Ha, Kathleen and I did have an engagement party. What do you call this? An illicit affair? Osbert's eyes turned icy, and when he spoke again, his voice was like frost. So what? Everything depends on whether Kathleen is willing. Does she know you lied to her? Osbert tightened his grip on my hand. I knew he was nervous. I squeezed his hand back. Rudy Green, Are you from ancient times? It's the 21st century. Why are you still talking about parental orders and matchmakers? Besides, didn't you skip the engagement party? Who I choose has nothing to do with you. Kathleen Birch. I didn't miss it on purpose that day. Something came up. Besides, Kathleen, I am willing to marry you. Rudy's face was grim. Kathleen, do you remember everything now? I gave Osbert a reassuring look. Rudy, is your willingness to marry me supposed to be a good thing? No matter what happened in the past, now and in the future, I have nothing to do with you. Our union is void. I am just myself. My marriage is my own decision. But Rudy wouldn't give up. Kathleen, don't you know, you used to like me a lot. When you come to your senses, you'll regret it. Oh, really? I don't remember. I grabbed Osbert's hand, ready to leave. This was too embarrassing. Rudy, however, grabbed my wrist, his expression cold. Kathleen, I'll give you one more chance. Choose him or me. Are you crazy? Let go. Kathleen, you weren't like this before. Osbert tightened his grip on Rudy's hand. She told you to let go, didn't you hear? Without exaggeration, if this weren't a law-abiding society, Osbert would have undoubtedly broken his wrist. Osbert held me as we returned to the car. Osbert, I want to know the truth. Osbert hesitated before speaking. Previously, the Coral family didn't cooperate well with other families. After investigating, we found out it was the Green family and the Birch family behind it. My subordinates kidnapped you without my consent. Who knew Rudy Green wouldn't come to save you? You had an accident while escaping and lost your memory. After that, you were sent to me. Kathleen, although I might have had some ulterior motives, I would never hurt you. I didn't really want to deceive you. If you want to go back, I'll let you go. Osbert held my hand, trembling slightly. He lowered his eyes, and for the first time I saw a lost look on his face. I knew he didn't mean to hide the truth from me. He didn't take away my phone. If I wanted to know what happened, I could just ask someone. He didn't restrict me from going out. I stayed home simply because I was lazy. On the contrary, I was infatuated with him, living a comfortable life. Who could I blame? I'm not going back. Really? Osbert was puzzled. You're not going back to the Birch family either? To my dad, I'm just a tool for marriage alliances. Besides, going back to the Birch family is tiring. I can't play, can't sleep, can't pursue my interests. I'm constantly bound by rules, learning everything to win a man's heart. I cupped Osbert's face. Now I only need to tease the man I like. All right, we won't go back. I sat on his lap, just slightly taller than him. Osbert looked up and kissed me. I wrapped one arm around his neck, the other slipping inside his shirt. In the confined space, the sounds of breathing and wetness were clearly audible. Osbert held my mischievous hand. No, sweetheart, it will be uncomfortable in the car. I softened my voice and whined, but it's still a long way home. I rubbed my leg against him. How will you solve this? Osbert placed me on the seat. Who said I don't have a place nearby? We sped all the way home. I hadn't even familiarized myself with the surroundings before Osbert carried me into the bedroom. You seduced me first, now you can't escape. Even though I had seen it before, when I sat on the bed and Osbert unbuttoned his shirt, I still blushed. The room's temperature rose, and Osbert kissed away the tears on my face. Sweetheart, cry it out. The night outside was deep, the moon swinging in the clouds, and something quietly reached its peak. At the first white bar. Rudy, that woman who has been pestering you. Shut up. Rudy smashed his phone, silencing the entire room. The liquor in the private room was spilled all over the floor. Rudy held a woman in his arms. Drinking, kissing, reveling. He wanted to forget everything. The woman lay in his arms. Honey. Rudy paused and suddenly pushed her away. Who told you to call me that? Only Kathleen had ever called him that. Back then, he found it disgusting, but now he missed it dearly. Get out! All of you, get out! Rudy drove everyone away. His childhood friend poured him a drink. TSK, love is always controlled by the one who takes the initiative. Henry said it right. Rudy tilted his head back and gulped down the drink. Then what do you think I should do? A woman, if taken by someone, just take her back. Rudy thought of Kathleen smiling so happily at Osbert and felt a surge of anger. He smashed the glass and drove away. I didn't expect to be kidnapped again. Just a short trip out in the evening, and I ran into Rudy again. He walked towards me quickly, and I instinctively stepped back. He covered my mouth and nose, a strange scent filled my nostrils, and then I lost consciousness. I woke up on a bed, fortunately not tied up this time. I quickly got up to open the door, but Rudy pushed it open. Rudy, you actually drugged me. Kathleen, don't say it so harshly. You were always mine, I'm just taking you back. Enough, Rudy Green, stop it. Rudy cornered me against the wall, gripping my chin. Kathleen, once you regain your memory, you'll like me again. I turned my face away. Calm down, I have regained my memory, but I truly don't like you anymore. It's true. Since I saw him last time, my memories have gradually returned. But it no longer mattered. It was just a youthful obsession. I kept hitting a wall until it turned into disappointment. Vanished into nothing. In fact, I'm quite grateful for this memory loss, which reduced my pain and welcomed a new life. Rudy raised his voice, his emotions a bit agitated. Impossible, the old Kathleen liked me the most. You said it yourself, that was the past. I'm sorry, Kathleen, I didn't realize my feelings for you before. I was wrong, let's be together properly. Rudy pressed my shoulders and kissed me forcefully. Get off, the past is the past. I pushed him away and slapped him across the face. Rudy rubbed his mouth with his finger, emotions swirling in his eyes. Kathleen, what's so good about Osbert Coral? How long have you been with him? Can it compare to our 10 years of knowing each other? It can. Rudy grabbed my wrist, twisted it behind my back, and knelt on my legs to pin me down. But we are already engaged, you will always be mine. He single-handedly undid my clothes, kissing my cheek wildly. You're crazy. Yes, I am crazy. Seeing you with him drove me crazy. I suppressed my fear, recalling the self-defense techniques Osbert taught me. Seizing the opportunity, I bit his arm hard, kneed him, and flipped over with force. Rudy couldn't dodge in time, and I smashed the table lamp on his head. Taking advantage of the moment, I hit him a few more times. I knocked him out. But the villa door wouldn't open. Fortunately, I found Rudy's phone. I dialed Osbert's number. Osbert. Kathleen, don't worry, I'm on my way. Hearing Osbert's voice, I finally couldn't hold back my tears. Rudy, he kidnapped me. I found out, I'm almost there, don't panic, where are you now? When Osbert found me, I was hiding in the bathroom. He picked me up, comforting me softly, it's okay, I'm here. The loud banging on the door woke up Rudy. He looked at the scene in the room. Osbert, who gave you the guts to break into my house? Osbert wrapped me in a coat, wiping the tears from my face with his fingers. He whispered fiercely in my ear, sweetheart, how dare he kidnap you, should I kill him? He turned his head, and the coldness in his eyes sent shivers down one's spine. Rudy's legs went weak with fear. With a glance from Osbert, the bodyguards beside him pinned Rudy down and started to beat him. His men were not ordinary bodyguards but trained fighters who had followed him abroad. Each punch landed heavily, painful but not fatal. Osbert covered my ears, sweetheart, don't listen, let's go home. After resting for many days, Osbert put a lot of effort into getting Rudy into prison. The Green family was also thoroughly ruined. During this period, Josh Coral came to see me. He came with a bruised and swollen face. Did your brother hit you again? No way. Josh grimaced. It was a woman, very beautiful, but too ruthless. Some guys had bad intentions and kidnapped her. I saved her, but she hit me along with them. But she was really beautiful. When she was hitting me, I thought, it's worth dying under her fists. By the way, bro, when are you getting married? Osbert held my hand in disgust. I want to propose next month, offering 2% of the Coral family shares to the Birch family. So much? Give it all to my dad? Yes, that's my stance. I sighed. You might as well give it to me. The old man just likes to use me. He's treating me like he's selling his daughter. I want to leave the Birch family. I want to decide my own marriage. Of course, there's a lot for you too. Osbert pinched my face. And much more than him. The entire future of the Coral family is yours, but giving your dad shares shows my stance. I can't let the outside world look down on you. I pondered for a moment, then give it to my sister. After my mom passed away, my sister has been taking care of me. An elder sister is like a mother. Actually, I've suffered less. My sister has suffered more. Now she works at Birch Group. And is always being suppressed. But my sister is not only beautiful but also very decisive in her actions. With your help, she'll have it easier. All right. Can I meet her? To see if she's as beautiful as the one who hit me. Josh, with his face still hurting, couldn't help but joke. Oh, my sister has learned Sonda. You might get another beating. The next day, Osbert went to my house to propose. My dad was furious. Osbert half forced and half threatened him, and he finally agreed. My sister, with a stern face, immediately threatened if anything happens to Kathleen. Osbert nodded, don't worry. Josh, for some reason, hid in the corner, too scared to make a sound. Osbert moved my studio to the busiest area of the city. Before, my dad controlled me, but I still graduated from a foreign school and became a top domestic designer. Now, with Osbert's help, I was thriving in the industry. But when I got busy with work, I inevitably neglected Osbert a bit. Late at night, Osbert hugged me from behind. Kathleen, touch me. Osbert, don't move. Osbert pulled out my chair and crawled under the desk. What are you doing? I won't bother you, you can work. Okay. When his warm tongue brushed against my skin, I knew I couldn't trust him. The lines in my hand had already curved, soft and shapeless. Kathleen, Osbert raised his bright fingertips. His voice was hoarse. How about you wear the dress you designed tonight?